everyone, welcome back to Apple Makes Yarn Time. This is episode 8. It is Happy New Year, so it is 2026, which is so crazy. But before we get started, I did want to say thank you everyone so much for the warm welcome on my last video. Obviously it had been years since I posted, but really appreciative of all the views, likes, and the comments. I thought that was so sweet. Some of you said welcome back. So yeah, that really touched my heart and definitely has motivated me to keep going. So yeah, so today's episode, it is a regular episode of Yarn Time, but I did want to spend some time today talking about like my yarn goals for 2026. I didn't want to make like a whole separate video just because I don't know, I feel like I don't have like that much to say necessarily, but who knows. Knowing me, I'll probably go on for quite a bit. But I did want to talk about some things that I have been working on and finished over the holiday season. I was traveling quite a bit. I went abroad for about 2 weeks, but I still did get quite a bit of knitting done, so I'm very happy and I'm excited to show you all what I have both on my needles and also just managed to cast off as well. So let's get into it. Woo! Okay, so I did actually manage to finish, I guess technically 2 things, and then I also, if you remember in my previous video, I finished the waffle loop sweater by Other Loops. So I, at the time, hadn't blocked it, but I did manage to block it before I went on my vacation because I was in Korea, in Seoul, and it's very cold over there right now, like it is here in New York. So I thought it'd be nice to bring a nice warm sweater. So I did manage to block it in time, and I wore it on the trip, and that was really helpful because it was actually so cold and we were outside all day, every day. I didn't take a picture of me wearing it on my trip, but I'll put a picture here of me just wearing it in my house. And so you can watch that other episode of Yarn Time for more details on that project. But I will say it definitely did grow quite a bit after I blocked it, which I was expecting because it is an alpaca blend yarn. So it does grow a lot lengthwise, which I was anticipating. And so it definitely did change the fit. So it's like kind of like a more oversized fit, which that I'm totally happy with. I will say I think I'll probably be a little bit more hesitant to do another sweater in an alpaca blend with no other like second thread to kind of fortify it, because even though it is already 50% wool, I do feel like the alpaca, the trade-off is like it's super soft, like it feels really nice, but in a large sweater I think the weight does start to sort of drag it down a little bit and it becomes almost kind of floppy. So if that is the look that you want, I think that is, then that's totally fine. But I think especially in a sweater that has like texture and cabling, you do want it to be maybe a little bit more structured. So yeah, so that was my first fully finished piece that I did since my last episode. The next thing that I want to talk about, I actually also don't have with me right now because it was a gift knit. So I'll have some pictures on here on the side, but it is the boyfriend hat by Stephanie Nicole Bennett, which was a free pattern on Ravelry. So I will link that in the description box as I always do. But I made it for my boyfriend, who's the one modeling it in these pictures. And it is in Drops Nepal in the beige color, and I was really happy with how it turned out. It was like super easy pattern, super easy decrease setup. I think the only modification I did was to add like just like an extra round of knot decreases for each of the like rib point sections, and that was just to kind of smooth out the rib decrease slope and not make it like so stubby, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, I really like this pattern. I made it a lot longer than the original pattern, which I think is like meant to be more of like a skull cap, because my boyfriend wanted to be able to fold up the brim. So you can make it however long you want, basically just like start decreasing at the crown once it's the length that you want to cover the rest of your head. So I really enjoyed it. I would definitely make another one. I think I want to explore some other hat patterns, but this one's really nice again because it's free. And it's, you know, I think a pretty detailed pattern for it being free. So I really recommend it if you're looking for like a quick, easy worsted slash Aran weight hat pattern. And it's super warm, and he's been wearing it a lot again because it's so cold here. So I am very happy with that. All right, and then this is super exciting because I actually cast this on after my previous episode. So it hasn't even had a chance to become a whip, really. But I actually finished just a few days ago the Rhodes. Oh, lean back a little bit. This is a Rhodes sweater by Ozetta. So I'll also show off the little garter stitch detail on the back, which I think is really nice. But I did mention wanting to knit this in the previous episode, and I received the yarn for this in the mail. I was originally planning on doing this in Cascade 220, but then I got this Simply wool from knitpicks because knitpicks was having like a Black Friday sale, and it was just like such a good deal. I couldn't pass it up, and I got this and I opened it, and the color, this is in the color Wallace. So pretty, and I've been obsessed with brown for the past, you know, year or so. And I was like, I just need to cast this on and have myself like just this like really nice everyday brown sweater. And I really like the fit of all the Ozetta sweaters. I haven't blocked this yet, so I don't know for sure how it's going to block out. But because it's 100% wool and it's pretty rustic, I don't imagine that it will change too much. I think it'll probably just relax and I can get the ribbing stretched out and everything. But I am super happy with this, and I didn't really modify it much at all. I think the main thing was on the neck here, there's 2x2 ribbing. You can see the finishing on the edges here are tubular. In the pattern, it has you do like the rearranging the 2x2 into 1x1 so that you can do, I guess, the Italian bite off a little bit easier. I've actually never done that. I just do it as it is 2x2 because it's kind of the same idea, and you can find a lot of videos describing how to do it. The only tricky thing is like kind of connecting it in the round at the end. But if you've done if you've done 1x1 Italian ribbing bind off in the round, it's, you know, it's kind of the same idea. So I just think that looks a little bit neater, and it doesn't look, to me, I feel like you can tell when the stitches have been rearranged to 1x1 at the end here. And I think this sort of avoids that, and it just looks like 2x2 all the way up. But I really like the curling, the stockinette curling on the other hems. I think that's really cute, and it gives it that sort of like more rustic vibe, I feel like, which I really like. And I think the only other mod that I had to make was because my row gauge tends to be, for some reason, a lot looser than my stitch gauge. I need to look into why that's happening. I did have to cut out one sleeve decrease round or repeat, and I just like slapped it on at the end. So I still ended up with the same number of cuff stitches, but I just didn't do like an extra set of, I think it's 7 rounds for the size that I knit. And this is in the size medium because I wanted it to be a little bit oversized, a little bit more positive ease. So I am really excited. I think after this video, I'm going to go ahead and weave in the ends and get it blocked. But I did want to wait until I was recording so I could show you guys this before it gets, you know, trapped on the blocking mats for 2 or 3 days or whatever it is. So yeah, really recommend this. I am definitely looking to knit more of her patterns. I would knit this one again as well, just because it's just like such a classic sweater. Like the shaping is really nice. Like there's German short rows on the back, the front, and the sleeves, which I always really appreciate. I like, you know, the way that the collar is shaped on the front, and then I think just like having the extra little details like the back detail here and like the cuff detail, I think it's just all very thoughtful, and it comes together really nicely, and it makes this sort of more basic piece feel a little bit more special, but it's still obviously super wearable for every day. So I'm definitely, I think, going to be wearing the crap out of this winter. So I'm really happy to have finished it. kind of in the middle, in the depths of winter over here in the Northeast, where it's going to see a lot of use. Another thing that I wanted to mention also that came to mind when I was knitting this, and this is a little bit of a detour, so I apologize for that. But have you guys been seeing these ba sweaters? They have been all over my algorithm. My boyfriend, who is terminally offline, like he does not have social media, he even asked me about it. He was like, "Oh, what do you think of these sweaters?" And I've actually been seeing ozetta patterns mentioned a lot by knitters as sort of like a dupe for these baba sweaters because I think they're pretty expensive. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. Here's just like another one that I've been seeing a lot because I think designers are maybe kind of cottoning onto this trend. And for example, I think Petite Knit released a pattern recently that to me pings like it's sort of following the baba style of like, you know, just being like this big, chunky, oversized sweater. And I think they have I think it's like a crochet slip stitch edge on the collar, which I think is pretty distinctive because I don't actually think that's quite common, at least in knitting patterns that I see normally. So I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the baba trend and if you know what you think of it, and if you have any patterns that you know of that you think would be like good dupes, because again I feel like I see ozetta mentioned quite a bit. I think like specifically maybe the winter pullover, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting because I happened to be knitting one of her patterns, but way before I heard about this trend of duping this particular brand. So moving on, those are my finished objects. And so like I said, even though I was traveling and it was like the holidays, I wasn't really spending a lot of time at home. I did still get a lot of knitting done. I was knitting on the plane. I was knitting actually like during a little bit of my downtime while traveling. So I am very proud of myself and I'm excited with what more things I can hopefully finish during the winter season. So I'm going to get into some whip. I don't have like so many right now that are active. So the ones that I mentioned in my previous episode, I have sort of put to the side and I'm working on some new things. So I will go ahead and show you what I have on my needles right now. So the first thing that I have finished one of the pair, and it's actually these double slippers by, I think the designer is Liv Stangeland. I'm definitely saying that really incorrectly. The original pattern, I believe, is in Norwegian. I think it is actually on the Sandnesgaard website along with the English translation, so maybe it is like an affiliated designer or something like that. But I am actually following a sort of rewritten English version of the pattern that another Raveler posted. So I will make sure to link that in the description as well because I felt like it was a little bit more clear to me as a native English speaker. But yes, I do have one comically large double slipper right now. This is knit following the instructions for an EU, I think it's like 38/39 because I'm a size 8 woman's in US sizes. So I am usually a size 39 in EU. And so obviously the reason it is so comically large right now is because it hasn't been felted yet. So the idea for these slippers is that you knit basically like, here, I'll undo it. You knit this like kind of closed shape. So when it's unfolded, it looks like this. Almost like a weird mitten. So when I first saw this pattern, I was like so confused. I was like, what's happening? But the idea is really simple. Basically, you knit like 2 symmetrical slipper shapes. And so this is like a double layer. And so what I did was I used a Turkish double cast on at the bottom here, like you do for, I guess, toe up socks. But in the future, I think I'll just use Judy's magic cast on. And then you knit up and then you split into these 2 tubes and then you just close the top off. And I use Kitchener stitch for that. And so then you have this this sort of shape. And so then the idea is it becomes a double slipper once you stuff one into the other. I have to weave in this end. So let me do that. And then you have this really nice thick slipper. So yeah, it's a little messy right now, but then the idea is like once you felt it, then it kind of becomes this double layered, really well insulated slipper, and I just really enjoy that concept. I think this is something that people do for hats sometimes as well, is to make like kind of like a closed tube and then fold it into itself, and then you have a double layer hat. So that's just the same idea, but in a slipper. I had actually originally tried casting on the sailor slipper. So I'll show a picture here. That has been going, I feel like, viral on the algorithm as well lately, probably because of the ease of making it. And you can do a lot of like fun different patterns, but I just didn't really enjoy the way that the paneled construction was looking in this particular fabric. And so when I saw these double slippers instead, I felt like that just seemed a lot more, I guess it looked a lot more sleek in this one single solid color. And it also just seemed a lot more straightforward, like there's no seaming involved and etc., which I just wasn't looking to seam anything at the time. So I have finished this one and I'm almost done with the other one, which is still in my knitting bag. And so I'm hopeful that I can get these felted up soon and I can start wearing them, because again, like I said, it's been really cold and I have really bad circulation. So, you know, I'm sitting at my desk all day and my feet are just getting really cold. And so far I've been dealing it with it by just wearing really thick socks. But having a pair of wool slippers I think would be really nice. And it's just been like a fun little project. I just kind of work on it when I'm watching TV, and it's like very portable, so I can bring it over to my boyfriend's house and etc. So this has been fun and I really recommend it. And again, if you want a slightly clearer English version of the pattern, I will link that person's Ravelry project below and you can follow it the way that I did. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention about the slippers is I used also the drops Nepal in the beige color because I had leftover from the hat, and I think at this rate I'm probably going to be using up 4 skeins of it, so 200 grams of the drops Nepal. So I think it's a great little stash buster as well if you kind of overestimated your yardage for a sweater or something, which I do all the time. I actually have a full skein of the Simply Wool left over from my road sweater, so I'm trying to think of like kind of what to do with it, and I'll talk more about that later as well. Okay, so my next whip is one that I cast on, I think either yesterday or the day before. Basically, the minute I cast off my road sweater by Ozetta, I cast on the air sweater by Ozetta. So I'll put a picture here of what it looks like. But I'm actually making this for my boyfriend because I asked him, would you rather have a road sweater or would you rather have an air sweater? And he picked the air sweater, which is great because it's like something that I've been really wanting to cast on. And so I don't have much right now. It's just like this big long strip. And so this is forming the back panel that you see on the air sweater, which is one of the kind of nice little details that it has. And I'm knitting this in this really super beautiful greeny brownie color. This is the cilantro heather colorway from also knitpicks, but this is their wool of the Andes. Because I was on their website and I saw that they're having another sale, but specifically for wool of the Andes. So I ended up buying a sweater's quantity of this because I knew that I wanted to make something for my boyfriend. And I just think this is such a beautiful green color. It has like all these like other little like brownie, like more foresty green tones. I think honestly, knitpicks, their wool of the Andes has some of the nicest heathers that I have seen in like 100% wool. And again, it's so affordable and it was on sale. So I was like, I kind of have to buy it. But I am super happy with it. I also ended up getting a sweater's quantity of their wool of the Andes, like in the bare, undyed, unbleached color. And I think I might try to do like a cable sweater or something like that with it because it's like a really nice plush cream color. But yeah, so I am really excited to get this into more than just a long strip. This is really interesting construction. I've never done this type of, I guess, almost like a saddle shoulder type of construction. And so this has been like a cool new experience for me. It's definitely more involved, in my opinion, than the road sweater because you have to do like the provisional cast on. You know, you have to do that. You have to have a lot of things on hold, but you know, really not that bad at the end of the day. And I was able to learn Judy's magic cast on for this. for the provisional cast on, which is super easy, and definitely will be making use of that for other projects as well. And so yeah, I don't think I have any real mods planned for this. I was also really excited to knit this because it has the wide ribbing on all the edges, like, you know, the collar and the sleeves and the hem. And I had actually been really wanting to do something like that ever since I saw this pattern by Ramagarn. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the pattern, but I wasn't able to find an English version of their pattern because I think you're only allowed to buy the pattern if you buy the yarn with it or something. And so it didn't seem super accessible. Like I couldn't just buy it off of Ravelry, but I really, really liked the wide ribbing on that pattern when I saw it on Instagram one day. So finding this one by Ozetta was really nice. It's a little bit of a different construction. The Ramagarn one has a round yoke, and this one has, yeah, again, the saddle shoulder and kind of a little bit more of the standard drop shoulder construction. But again, the shaping looks really nice on the Ozetta pattern, loads of short rows. So I'm really excited to have this one going as well. And I'm knitting this in a size large because my boyfriend wanted a little bit more oversized, and he's normally a medium. So yeah, I'm really excited. Again, such a beautiful color. It looks really good at camera too. I think this is pretty accurate to how it looks like in real life. And then in certain lights it looks more green, in certain lights it looks more brown. So I'm really excited to work on this one, and hopefully we'll make good progress on this as well. Okay, so now we are getting to the part of the episode where normally I talk about like my knitting plans, like what are the patterns that I want to knit, is there yarn that I've bought recently, etc., etc. So I thought that I would sort of do a little bit of a different twist on this part of the video and talk about my 2026 plans. And so if you've made it this far, I hope that this will maybe be a little bit maybe inspirational to you. I'd also love to hear what your plans are for the year. And I think my goal with making goals is to always try to set things that feel one, reasonable, but two, kind of ongoing. So, you know, obviously there are certain milestones that I want to hit, but I don't want to necessarily just peg my progress to a year and then, I don't know, maybe feel bummed about not hitting it by the end of the year. So I want to avoid any sort of negative outcomes and just be like, these are things that I want to work on moving forward. And, you know, obviously New Year is kind of a good time to make those sorts of resolutions. So let's get into it. So the first kind of resolution that I have with regards to my knitting is to work on my knitting technique and skills and kind of just be more of like an intentional knitter. And so what I mean by that is I think, like, you know, a lot of us, we get a pattern and we knit according to the pattern, and yeah, we might make some modifications here or there, but for the most part we're like following the pattern as is. And I think, you know, that is a great way to learn. But I feel like I am at the point in my knitting where I can start maybe incorporating my own understanding of like stitches and techniques and construction. And so while I might still be following a pattern, I can at the very least be more intentional about, okay, like what kinds of decreases do I want to use? You know, what kind of shoulder shaping do I want to do? And not have to be necessarily following the pattern exactly every time. And, you know, that definitely does require some research and some math and just experience in general. So that's kind of just like what I want to work towards, is thinking about like, oh, do I have to be doing German short rows every time, or can I try out like Japanese short rows or other types of techniques in that way? And I think this is something that I have been already working on like a small scale, like doing better SSKs, which actually in this Ozetta Rhodes sweater pattern, she already does show you how to do, I guess it's called a knit two together left also, but it is, I think, a much neater way to do SSKs to make sure that that stitch sitting on the top isn't so big. And so kind of along with that, I have been watching a lot more knitting YouTube of not just vlogs, but of like technique videos. And so two of the main channels that I've been watching have been Nimble Needles and then Roxanne Richardson. I've been watching Nimble Needles for a really long time. I just kind of like the way that he sets up his videos. Like he walks you through all these techniques really clearly, and he has a great blog. So he's a really good resource for if you are a self-taught knitter, which I imagine most of us are. And then Roxanne Richardson, I have watched some of her videos in the past for like some specific technique, but I have been kind of getting more into her stuff just to learn more about knitting. Not necessarily anything that I might knit myself even. Like she does a lot of sock videos, for example. I'm not really a big sock knitter. I kind of tried getting into it a few years ago, but I just find for me personally, I like making stuff that you can that you can see when you're wearing like a full outfit. So obviously socks, you cannot see them when you're wearing shoes. But it's been really helpful just to think about technique. And I think she doesn't, neither of them shy away from doing math, which is, actually very important when you get into like self drafting and things like that. And so I think having all those resources here on YouTube has been really helpful. And something else that I've been maybe thinking alongside this is starting to work towards the first level of the master hand knitting certification. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, I think it's the Knitting Guild Association here in the States. They basically set up this certification, I guess, exam or project. And there's 3 levels, but basically the idea is once you complete all 3 levels, you have your, different knitting works judged or reviewed, then you are certified as a master hand knitter. So if you've ever watched Roxanne Richardson, or I think Suzanne Bryan also is a master hand knitter, they're not just saying that. They actually have like this certification that they've passed all these levels. And so I think for me, being someone who sometimes does enjoy an exam of a sort or testing myself, I think that would be like a really interesting way to push myself and challenge myself with the actual techniques of knitting, which to me is a big appeal of this craft, is being able to improve my skills. And so if I do end up working on that first level, I will definitely start a separate YouTube series about it, kind of update you guys on my journey and show you like the swatches that I'm making and everything like that. So that is something that I have been considering for sure. And I hope that, again, it'll kind of push me to become a better knitter and not just someone who's like knitting more and not really thinking about what I'm trying to get out of it, if that makes sense. My next resolution for the year is something that, again, I have been working on for a while, but I think I've finally sort of made a little bit more progress, but it's to knit smaller things, which sounds really silly because I think most people do start with smaller items, but because I'm someone who really enjoys the process of making something and then being able to wear it as part of like an outfit, I think I'm just really more drawn towards making like sweaters basically, or cardigans. And that's all well and good, but those just take a really long time, right? Like my Rhodes sweater, I was really happy with how quickly I finished it, but it still took me a month. So I think I would like to maybe actually allow myself some more instant gratification and knit smaller items. And so I have been managing to do that, like with the, the hats and the balaclavas. And I really want to make a pair of matching hand warmers, like figureless mitts. I want to make a pair for myself and hopefully a pair for my best friend who is moving to Japan soon. And so I think that would be a lot of fun to make a pair of striped mitts for the both of us. And that kind of leads into the other reason why I want to make smaller knits, is because I want to be able to do gift knits a little bit more easily. Because, I feel like, you can promise people that you're making them a sweater, but God knows when that's going to happen. And I think having a smaller, more approachable item is nice, and then you get kind of the good feeling of having been able to give someone something, and all the nice things that come with gift knits. But I think the other nice thing with smaller projects too is like it's a small way to again kind of practice maybe some new techniques and things like that. And also I am getting to the point where I do need to kind of stash bust a little bit because of my leftover yarn for various projects. And so this resolution is kind of less a resolution and more a way to address, I don't know, so just some logistics in my knitting life. So it's sort of like a win-win situation there. The third resolution that I have is one that I've been sitting on for ages, pretty much ever since I moved to New York, or even before, which is to attend a local knitting circle and hopefully make some knitting friends. So part of the reason why I started making these knitting videos is because I feel like my knitting, I don't know, the knitting community for me is very online. And I think maybe it is so the case with other, maybe younger knitters as well. I have a couple friends that I know in real life that are knitters, but we don't really like knit together. And I think probably out of all of them, I am the most like deep in it. Like I'm maybe the most prolific. And so I think if I were able to find a knitting circle or like a knitting club of some sort, it would be a really nice way to connect with other knitters, like, you know, whether they be my age or not, but at least other people that I could talk to. And I think that's just like, you know, also a really nice way to make new friends, is to bond over this shared hobby. And so that's really my goal for this year. Is there is a local yarn shop that I have had saved for ages, but it is in a different borough. So if you live in New York, you know the Queens Brooklyn divide is real. And so I've just never been able to make it down there because it is kind of hard to get to for me through public transit. But I think the yarn crawl is happening this year during April, and this shop always participates. I'll link them down below. Actually, they're called Cleo's down in Brooklyn, and I've always really wanted to go. It looks like such a charming little shop, and they do host a lot of these types of knitting circles and knitting events and crafting circles, etc. So I might try to find a friend, or I might drag my boyfriend there even, but my goal this year really is to get down there and join at least a session of a knitting circle, and just see like what other people are working on, as opposed to like kind of letting the internet algorithm determine what I might work on next, you know. So that is my third resolution, is to just basically get out there, go outside, and make some knitting friends, join a knitting circle. Now, last resolution is one that I kind of added on there after the fact, because I was watching a bunch of color work videos by, again, Nibble Needles and Roxanne Richardson. I was like, you know what? I should not be afraid of color work. And this is, I don't know, I've never admitted this, I guess, but I, for some reason, have always been very wary of color work, and specifically stranded color work. I think there's just something about the idea of floats that makes me very nervous. But after watching all these videos, and also I was reading an article about how stranded color work actually is so common in these like sort of Scandinavian countries because it's so cold there, and having that double layer of yarn floating on the back actually is insulation. I don't know, for me, that just having that kind of functional aspect of color work, for me, I was like, oh wait, yeah, like that is something that I should try. I don't know, maybe because it's just been so cold here that I'm like, yes, anything to make me warmer, that's great. But I do think that, again, it's like a challenge for myself, you know, to push myself to learn a new technique. And so definitely I want to start small, maybe like with mittens or something. But my goal for this year is to try to complete at least one stranded color work project and just kind of conquer this next milestone for me personally. And so, yeah, I think, you know, honestly, I don't think it's going to be that hard. But I think, you know, obviously there's things to pay attention to with color work, like tension and holding the yarn, and you know, managing it and things like that. But I do kind of want to take that next step in my knitting journey. And I don't know, I feel like there are so many like cute little patterns that I see, like with like bunnies and I don't know, just like things that you can't achieve with just different stitch patterns. So I do want to push myself in this regard. And so if you guys have any suggestions for like a nice like beginner color work pattern that is still like cute and something that like I would enjoy knitting and wearing and having, etc., please recommend me. You know, if you have the link to the pattern, I would really appreciate it. But yeah, that is kind of my last goal for 2026, is this more type of milestone goal. Is like I do want to have, by the end of the year, have finished one color work project, you know, however big it may be. Okay, so like I anticipated, I have kind of blabbed on for quite a bit, but those are my main, hopefully reasonable goals for 2026 when it comes to my own knitting journey. And so again, would really love to hear if you guys have any knitting resolutions, like things that you've been working on and want to keep working on, anything new you want to try, you know, that sort of thing. Or even if it's not knitting directly. Like maybe you're a knitter and now you want to move into crochet, or you want to take the next step and you want to spin your own yarn. That's always been really intriguing to me as well, for the future. But yeah, I'm really excited for another year of knitting. I think that I have really made some big strides in the past few months in terms of getting back into the swing of things. And so I also really hope that I can keep up these videos. I didn't put that as a goal just because I don't want to promise anything, but I would love to keep sharing what I'm working on and putting it out there for you guys to enjoy, hopefully, and hearing what y'all are working on as well. So I'm going to wrap up now, but just thank you again so much for watching, for sticking with me. I really do appreciate all the comments that I get. You know, I respond to all of them, and I'm just really thankful that people like you guys are following me in my journey, and that we can all enjoy this wonderful crafting hobby together. So yeah, so I will see you next time, hopefully in about another month or so with some more updates. And I hope you have a wonderful day, that you are staying warm if it's cold outside. And I will see you next time. Bye.